Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Hearthstone. Today is Friday, September the 13th. Ooh, spooky. On the European account, we have this special Tavern Brawl quest, and then we don't have anything to re-roll, so we just need to play mage cards and win with the mage, which all of those things could just overlap here. This is the Tavern Brawl where we get 3 wishes, which seem to quite accurately know what cards you need at that exact second and to give it to you. If you're watching live, it took me a little bit longer to start. I'm trying to figure out how to get the stupid chat to pop up correctly. The problem here is that YouTube keeps launching the YouTube app every time there's anything from the domain youtube.com, even if it's not an actual link to a YouTube video, and I don't know how to fix that. It's annoying, to say the least. Less annoying is that I finished Torchlight 1. Torchlight is a little bit annoying. It's grindy. I finished it in my own way, to not a full rage quit, but I did the main game. So playing on easy, you get to effectively what the Diablo final boss is at level 35, floor 35 of the cave. The cave is a kind of storyline written collection of floors. You do about 3 to 5 floors in one visual theme, and then with one collection of enemies. After that point, you then move to a different visual theme with a different collection of enemies. So yeah, I beat Ulrich, which is a really pathetic bad clone of Diablo. Torchlight, even though I think it was supposed to be a spiritual successor to Diablo, did not learn anything from Diablo 1 and improve on anything in Diablo 1, and actually got worse than Diablo 1. Now, trying to play Diablo 1 on PC might be a bit of a weird position to be in, because yeah, that's just not, I think, likely to happen. Let's see. Yeah, I'm really not of the opinion that it would be worth the time to play Diablo 1 right now, at least. Maybe years from now it would make more sense. Part of the problem with playing Diablo 1 is then there's a desire to play Diablo 2, and then maybe even a desire to play Diablo 3, so you're talking anywhere between 60 hours between 3 games if you try to rush through it really fast, to 180 plus hours if you're trying to play it reasonable, or trying to play it slow. The start of your turn, if there are 2, and mix. One of the annoying parts is I'd been collecting a lot of items that felt like, oh, I could retire my first character and then hand these items to the second character and have a much better accelerated experience. You really can't, because you kind of need to run through the game and get to level 10 before you could equip any of the items. I ended my first character at level 43 of as high as 150, no, not 150, 100. So I'm gonna play this, and then I'm gonna play this, and then I'm gonna silence. One of these. Which of these do I want to silence? Torchlight's not bad. If you can't play Diablo 1 for some reason, play Torchlight. And I'm hoping Torchlight 2 shows major improvements, controller support, things like that. And certainly a lot of my nostalgia of Diablo 1 might be a mix of the good parts of Diablo 1 and Diablo 2. But I kind of do feel like that's... Jeez, how nice to have two of those on the field. Let's see. I'm thinking, since I played Control, and I kept mentioning Control felt a lot like Friday the 13th, the TV series, which was a very old sci-fi TV series where there were cursed objects. There was a Sci-Fi Channel series otherwise of magical items that I can't even remember the name of it. There was a brief time in which the Sci-Fi Channel almost was doing a good job, and in that brief moment they had a city full of magical items that were based on science going amok. So like there was a level of weird science, secret science that the rest of the world wasn't aware of, but it was science. It was really magic, but they said it was science. And then there was another series where there was a giant facility of magical items that were just kind of magical items that they had to be collected and kept in this effectively like the Indiana Jones scene where the Ark of the Covenant was kept, just a giant facility. Oh, it was called the Warehouse. Warehouse 13. That was the name of the show. Yeah. Warehouse 13. I guess Control could have also been reference to that series. The funny thing about that is that it kind of came and went, and it was alright to watch when it was happening, but not that interesting. There's also a TBS show called The Librarians, based on the Librarians TV movie series, TBS movies, which are also magical items. So the concept has been done to death. We'll talk about later that Control does have some more DLC and patches that they've announced. I think it's going to be free DLC, so perhaps there's an argument that can be made that I should go back and try Control a little bit more when that DLC comes out. I don't have a big problem with that. It might give me an excuse to try and do some of the side story things that I skipped. Probably should have done. But since I played Control, there was this game called Echo that is by this company that I think is out of business, and I don't think the game is available for purchase anymore. It was pulled earlier this year, I believe. So I want to play that because I feel like that would break down interestingly as a comparison visually to Control. I think I want to also play Lego City Underground. Get back into another Lego game. It's been a while. We have a new video card. Last time I tested a Lego game, we had a fix for this micro stuttering issue. I mean, there really is no excuse for Lego games to not run now. since I'd be recording content for December, it'd be a little too early to play Resident Evil 4, but that is kind of on the short list. And let's see, I want to play Echo, I want to play Lego City Undercover, and then I think I want to work my way to then playing Torchlight 2. I don't want a big gap between covering Torchlight 1 and Torchlight 2, but at least a month's time. I've stupidly not uploaded any of the Control video files, but having that extra SSD gives me 512 gigabytes, which is about half full right now, considering there's 2 series in it. So it totally makes sense for me to start uploading those files and get that going.
Cast a spell. I want to cast a spell.
Let's see. And there's a little bit more work I want to do to my server when I get some free time, but I really haven't had a lot of free time. In fact, I've been wasting a lot of time that I would not call free time. The main thing is the remote servers administration website, Guacamole, Apache Guacamole. Like, I've got it up and running by a default setup, just a basic, easy setup where it's just a plain text file that has the usernames and passwords of the then internal VNC connections or remote desktop connections or SSH connections, things like that. There's about 4 different types of connections you can have to remotely administer things. I want to step up the security and step up the ability by adding a plugin that allows you to then do it through MySQL databases. Once you get that data that is in a plain text file right now into a database instead, you have a lot more tighter control. The website itself can administer that information. No longer do you have a very janky setup where if you were trying to run this at some kind of job and you had employees under you, you're not having the employees have to tell you their password, which is exactly what I've seen before happen. Is I have seen some pretty pathetic setups where it's like, this is your username, this is your password, you can't change your username, you can't change your password. This is the same password that we hand out to the past 10 employees over the past 10 years, and we haven't changed the password because it's all just hard-coded in. Or you're allowed to pick a password, but you're telling it just to a boss who's writing it down maybe on a piece of paper in his desk drawer. Just bad security. It doesn't really come anywhere close to the trust no one mentality that you should have for security, in my opinion. Trust no one meaning you don't tell a boss your password. The boss just has the authority, because he's labeled as the boss, to deactivate your account or force you to change your password if for some reason it needs to be changed. But he can't see what the password is, and he doesn't care what the password is. That's just between the end user and the database. So getting Guacamole up in security is important in a lot of reasons, but mostly because this is a remote administration software, which the whole point, or at least part of the whole point of it, of setting up the system, is to move security upwards and not have people connecting to VNC servers when VNC servers can only have about 8 characters to maybe 35 character long passwords, but it's really not secure because it's not encrypted connection, so any man-in-the-middle attack can just sniff what the password is because it's sent in an unencrypted form. So yeah, that's what there's a few other bugs and issues. Turns out some music files I have on the Linux file system have folders that end in a period, and because the folders end in a period, they can't be synchronized to a Windows 10 PC. So there's just some renaming that needs to be done there. That's a little weird, okay, but weird nonetheless. Just little things like that. Still working on it. Still screwing around with it. Yeah, that's all I ever do with it when I do something with it. But then also I go into long periods of hibernation where I don't bother with it at all, particularly if it's broken. Spend all your mana, deal that much damage to the minion. Okay. I'm wondering if I did the third wish, if it really would have a wish for more wishes. Because that was the joke in this tavern brawl.
Shields up.
One of the things that was probably the most offensive about Torchlight is the fact that you kinda don't do anything as the character you choose at all during the game. Like you speak at the beginning of the game once, and you speak at the end of the game once, and that is it.
Job done.
Which, that's rather ridiculous. The rest of the story that you get in Torchlight is just through load screen audio files through the bad guy's diary. And yeah, it just stinks.
Arise, my champions.
Alright. What was that? Summon all friendly minions that died this turn. Oh. Well, that's nobody. That was a waste. I thought it said summon all friendly minions that died this game.
Spirit of the flames, turn them to ash.
Well, there's no reason to belay this. I've also been watching that BBC kid show, Young Dracula. It's stupid to be a grown adult watching a BBC kid show, but it's actually right up my style. I wish something like that had been out when I was a kid. I would have really loved to watch it. Although, looking on Google at some of the images, it seems like it went 5 seasons, and at some point all the characters went through major growth spurts and became awkward to say, but awkwardly attractive, and that may have led to some fan fiction. The Harry Potter series kinda had that, but not by much. I would say Hermione Granger changed a little bit, and a lot of the very lesser known characters have changed a little bit, but Ron Weasley's actor and Harry Potter's actor have not blossomed yet into amazingly attractive characters. I think Harry Potter probably could have done that, but he was overworking himself, probably even to this day, and pretty much acting as a functional alcoholic from what I hear. But child actors, that's what happens. Please wait a few minutes and start again. How about not? So let's start covering games. So here we have something called Rhythm Mage VR, which is a rhythm game with monsters. It's kind of cutesy, but I would say not visually appealing. It's a VR game. It's early access. They want $19.99. It's third-party EULA and English full audio, allegedly. Yeah, nothing there too appealing. I did skip over a couple games while I was opening games that came out on Steam, but not a lot. Next we have a game on Steam called Deadly Step. Looks like it's tagged dark fantasy. It looks like it's a top-down game with just still images and dark screenshot syndrome. Really boring looking game. Claiming to have a map editor, which, I mean, good for it, but this could also just be a RPG Maker style dungeon crawler for what it's worth. It kind of goes to show that the Diablo-esque games, getting back to Torchlight, Deadly Step is $9.99. It supports English, Russian, and Ukrainian, so I think it's probably a Russian troll game. But yeah, it really goes to show that Diablo-esque games have no place in modern time, and they haven't for, I would say, at least 5 years. If they came out with a Diablo 4, I don't think anybody would be super interested. We'd want to see it, but I don't know people really want to play it, because those games were always selling themselves on the idea of they were always selling themselves on the idea of providing a huge amount of value in gameplay time, which used to be a thing in the 90s that you would want. You would want a ton of really, really long, very repetitive game content like Diablo, where you have random generated dungeons and random dropping loot. But frankly, by modern standards, I have so many games on Steam. I think everybody, even a kid, has so much access to entertainment of some form. Like, you've got your cell phone that a kid probably can play on if they don't own their own, which is millions of free-to-play mobile games. And if you were going to grind on any kind of game, you might do better playing a free-to-play mobile game and grinding through that than playing a PC game that has that amount of grinding. If you do still like a Diablo-esque game, World of Warcraft, Classic or World of Warcraft might be something that you're interested in, but I don't think too many people are even really interested in that. Some people definitely are. Some people were a little nostalgic about it, but I'll be amazingly surprised if it doesn't come out that a 50% drop off occurs after the first few months of the WoW Classic servers. But besides even mobile games, there's Netflix, there's Hulu, there's YouTube, there's so much other things a kid could do besides playing a game where, like Diablo, where you're just clicking. That's all I did for 18 hours in Torchlight, is just click. Click on the enemies, click. Keep on clicking. Occasionally I would hit a number on the number pad, but barely even then.
I want to cast a spell.
So yeah, the I just don't think those kinds of games work. When I compare it to Clash Royale, even Clash Royale asks way too much of me. But each game, each encounter in Clash Royale is a 3-minute experience, and they really only wanted you to play at most, say, seven 3-minute experiences per day or so. Yeah, I'd say about 7 per day, so 21 minutes, 30 minutes, that's not really asking too much. Is 21 minutes a day. If Hearthstone only required 21 minutes a day, then we'd have 1.5-hour streams between 3 different accounts. But instead of 3-hour streams. But if you were gonna try and do something like Diablo for 21 minutes, you probably wouldn't even get through one cave. And it should definitely be mentioned that Torchlight's #1 problem is its inventory system. You have far too few inventory slots for the amount of items you're picking up, with no ability to fix it in any way. You can't get rid of items or disenchant items. So
what to do?
Let's do this. And play that. I'm just trying to play mage cards if I can't win. I keep mentioning Destiny Child. I'm still playing that game, still having pretty good time with a gacha game that plays itself mostly. It still gets accolades for having a wide variety of, and frankly an almost constantly changing group of things you can do. There's several base actions you do on a daily basis, and then there are several extra things that happen depending on what's going on. Let's see.
As you wish.
Job's done.
Yeah. So Destiny Child feels like a closer mobile version to something like Diablo could be, because at its base it is really a dungeon crawler. It just doesn't have a top-down perspective like Diablo. It does have loot, but the loot is way more important and focused on, instead of being just randomly generated stuff. It does have enemies, a wide variety of enemies, which also are the wide variety of character classes and companions you can have fighting on your side, so they double up their benefit because of that. On top of which, despite the fact that Destiny Child is a stupid anime storyline, it is still by far more writing and better writing than what you got in Torchlight, which was a low effort, generic, there's a bad guy, go kill the bad guy story. That's all it was. So let's do a little experiment here. What do we get if we draw it on the first turn?
Time runs out on me.
Alright.
Job done.
Let's see what happens. I think there probably is something that is incongruous though with Destiny Child and Diablo. So if you were gonna make a mobile game, I mean it's got to be a tapper game. It's got to be something that plays itself. So the character, if you were making a mobile version of Diablo, the character would have to walk and decide and pathfind towards wherever it wanted to go, like wherever the enemies are, automatically. The enemies would have to do the same, and I think you would mostly have your phone in a landscape view, horizontal, and you would have a thumb on the left and a thumb on the right, and you would give health on the left and mana on the right, and then he would just auto cast spells and auto attack, and then there would be, after a small amount of fighting, a point where you would level up and switch out the equipment, and at that point the game would have to pause. Undoubtedly, it would have to pause at that point.
Someday I'll be just like you.
And then you could just look at the equipment and loot and all the pickups. So you'd have to have a basically infinite bag of holding to pick up all the loots. And if you wanted to have the character like directly controlled where you were attacking, you'd have to move to like a turn-based system or something. Something I don't think you would want in a Diablo game. So yeah, I don't think that would work. You would have to auto attack at the very least. Maybe you could have it where you're tapping to do the spell attacks and help out, but I don't think even then. And when you have that limitation to Diablo, where you're not using a mouse to move, and you're not telling them where to go, and you're not clicking to attack, it really does stop feeling like Diablo, and it sounds a lot more like Destiny Child, which is exactly how that plays. When you have it in auto mode, you just do everything. I guess that's why we haven't seen a Diablo game make its way to mobile yet. Give Blizzard time. Activision Blizzard will probably release something like that. The only way it really works is if you make it more of a tablet game that it's heavy recommended to use.
Knowledge is power, and I know a lot.
To use the, what am I trying to say, the dumb controller, yeah. If it was heavily recommended, you should play this on the controller, and it should be on a tablet screen, not a cell phone. Or if maybe it could be put on a cell phone if you're doing like an Oculus Vive type situation and it's VR, then it kind of makes sense. It would make a lot of sense if there was just a companion cell phone app to a Diablo 4, and you could see the equipment and the loadout and the inventory while you're playing just by briefly looking down as a second screen experience. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Death Live. It looks like it's a Japanese visual novel, although it's tagged as an adventure, and it looks like it's Japanese exclusive. It doesn't seem particularly detailed in its
Who's ready
graphics.
to make some
Here you have the general trick of mostly text being shown on the trailer. You're getting shown one character, which is pretty low effort. 2 characters, 3 characters, 4 characters. Wait a minute, let's have this conversation. I come back here slowly, and can we get to that character? I'm gonna have to be really fast on the pause button. There we go. Alright. Deal 4 damage, randomly split between all enemies.
What to do? What to do?
Deal 7 damage, randomly split between all enemies.
I learn.
Time runs out on me.
Seriously?
So, here's where you're wrong.
Take this guy out. So, we've had our ups and downs with Steam allowing anime characters that look young. Here's an anime character that looks young. I guess because this game isn't tagged sexual content, it's alright. I guess that's within the rules. But
Oh yes.
who knows?
Serve me
This is a
now.
59-cent game. It's Chinese. So perhaps it does really just boil down to they hate Japanese games with young looking characters, but Chinese games that are emulating Japanese visual novels with young characters are okay. Who knows? Like, the thing with that is we still have not gotten any straight information, and I don't think we're likely ever to get straight information about it. Let's see. I could have refreshed my hero power,
So,
or I can just
here's where
win.
you're wrong.
Even if I thought Def Live was good, though, it's not English, so we're not going to do anything with that. So I think we got a daily quest. It gave us just 2 packs, I guess, always. I did check, but we can go back here and see that Tuesday does seem like the day that's gonna happen. Alright, let's move over to the Asian account at this point. It's super early to be switching accounts, but I'm perfectly fine with having a short Friday stream. That is the perfect time to have a short stream. It would allow me to take a little bit of a break and then maybe jump into playing Echo or the Lego game.
It's good to see ya.
Either one of those would be helpful to try and get some more progress made. Yeah, I guess it is a picture of 2 items, so I don't know why I'm specifically surprised about that. So we need to use our hero power and win 2 games with the Warlock, and on Monday we'll do this Tavern Brawl. So, Zoo Warlock ranked, let's play. We'll give ourselves a little bit of a challenge and make ourselves play. Ranked. Gamatsu has an article here for the PS4. Azure Lane Crosswave DLC production has been announced. Detail yet to be announced. Azure Lane Crosswave being the series of games with anime girl personifications of famous battleships. There seems to be a slightly growing cry to outlaw the Imperial Rising Sun flag. Particularly, I think it's coming from Korea this time. Okay, you know. North Korea, I think rightfully so, and South Korea probably rightfully so, are not happy with Japan and what they did in World War II to them. There's also a growing case here of North and South Korea becoming more chummy and thus aligning their own political views. The danger there, as a person in the United States, from my perspective, is that if one is not careful, I think there might be shenanigans where I believe it's the South Korean president, his name's Sun Myung-moon. I could be wrong about that. If one is not careful, I think he is so desperate to normalize ties and perhaps completely reunify the two Koreas that North Korea will be given actual legitimacy over the entire continent, and that would not be good, I think, for anybody, particularly South Koreans. Meanwhile, North Korea is also antagonizing everybody through many actions, not just shooting missiles, but also habitually kidnapping people. At least from what I've heard. And there we go. Oh geez, it's not even gonna be a challenge at this point. It's just gonna be, unless he can do a full board clear, I win next turn. So yeah, Azure Lane, Crosswave. It's a little weird that this game is coming to the PS4. We'll see if there's small bits of censorship here and there. We could almost start to think that perhaps Sony PlayStation has finally gotten the message and is rolling back their draconian rules of censorship, because we haven't seen any big stories of that lately. But we shall see. Like, Tokyo Game Show either just ended or is going on right now and is about to end. So a lot of announcements, particularly of Japanese games, are coming out right now.
Let's do this.
And there. Do I want to kill this guy? Do I want to kill this guy to buck this guy up, or would I want to buck this guy up? Or just leave it where it is? Moving on, Gamatsu Shin Sakura Wars, the animation announced based on the upcoming PlayStation 4 game. Not really video game related, but this Sakura Wars game is going to clearly play a big role, at least in Japanese culture, it looks like. So it's going to be a big deal, at least in Japan. Draw. And in the turn. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam that's a bunch of Asian characters, and it says Brain in a Vat Lies, which L-I-E-S. So is it Brain in a Vat of Lies mistranslated, or is it a Brain in a Vat Lying or Laying? I don't think it matters. Here you can see this is a low effort randomized developer and publisher. This looks like an extremely dark, low effort horror game, for lack of a better term. Horror adventure, I guess, is the best way to describe it. It's 99 cents, it's English and Chinese. We're getting back to seeing low quality Chinese products. Komatsu has an article for the Switch, Pokemon Sword and Shield official website, updated with glitched Pokemon. Okay. So, there can be... Either this was a glitch in the pictures, which is highly unlikely, frankly, or glitched Pokemon are a thing in Pokemon now. I mean, Missing No has been around for a very long time, but there's certainly, I think at some point they introduced an entire generation of glitched Pokemon. Next, we have a game on Steam called Miss Lizette's Assassin Maid. This is almost certainly one of these RPG games that sells on the fact that it has a nudity patch in it and has several scenes that are censored out, and then you can go find a patch that will put them back in. The animation seems pretty inconsistent, and anatomically you got some pretty large bosoms there. But here's what the game really is, just a top-down RPG Maker garbage game, and it's totally not worth it. I don't even know why people make these games. Just I guess maybe you can't just sell the sex scenes alone, and maybe that's the problem. $8.99 discounted, English and Chinese. Maybe in China you can't sell those kind of games at all. That might be the bigger problem. But yeah, I could see a lot of those games. They probably only have about 15 minutes of sex scenes. Even if you try to put text around it, you're only stretching it out to about a 30-minute experience, and at that point you probably can't sell it. So wrapping it around an extremely low effort RPG Maker game that gives you several hours that you have to grind for probably makes it seem like it's worth the value. This is a similar thing I imagine you had to do with like the old days with selling porn, which I doubt very many people are buying porn anymore, but there's probably, like, I heard anecdotally that the Girls Gone Wild videos were never as interesting or as action-packed as they advertised themselves as, and the best stuff that you were seeing was the stuff on the screen, on the advertisement, which would totally make sense. Like, that would be the thing you would put forward, was the best content. So yeah, maybe it really just is just a matter of you need to sometimes put some sawdust in the meatloaf just to make it feel like you're making money. Restaurants are a good example of that too. Like, if you go to a really high class restaurant where they're barely giving you a 1 ounce piece of meat, but they're charging you $25 for it, you probably are not getting ripped off, but it sure feels like you're getting ripped off when you can get a quarter pounder for a couple bucks. And there's really, as far as adult games, video games, there's no quality control really anyways. None of it's good. So I'm gonna have to give and take away a compliment here. The compliment here I want to give is from Gearbox Official. I'm still staying and not changing my mind in any way that I'd cover Borderlands 3, or probably I'll never purchase it. I might get it, and it's really cheap several years from now, but they put out this post. We are so ecstatic that so many of you are loving the new EchoCast extension. That's like a Twitch extension that lets you cause items to fall down, to drop when somebody's playing the game and streaming it. This is new technology for us, so there might be a hiccup there, here and there to start. That said, most of the known issues can be addressed with a simple refresh. That is almost the perfect type of support message to put out there. Make it sound like it's a great thing. We're very happy that you love our software so much that it's breaking, instead of making it feel like a sleazy thing. We didn't bother to get our equipment, our software working because we were cheap. Or often it's just a cold response. A lot of people tweet like there's still a 120 character limit in Twitter, and there's like no reason for it. So that's a really good, really professional way to deal with the problem. Later on, there'll be a tweet from Gearbox that's really not that professional, and so I will have to take away that compliment I'm giving it right now. Let's see. Let's go and just draw cards.
This was not in my contract.
Again, if they don't have a board clear by their 4th turn, I'm probably gonna win. Slightly, just very tangentially related to Borderlands and Gearbox, in the sense that the original voice actor for Claptrap went on to move to work for Rooster Teeth. Rooster Teeth is laying off, I believe it was 30% of their workforce. So yeah, things are not going well there. I think this is probably to do with just perhaps an impending recession and a lack of interest in the content that they make, which is a lot of weird stuff, because I think Funhouse, which was called Game Insider, is owned by Rooster Teeth. I think there's several YouTube things owned by Rooster Teeth. Ruby is owned by Rooster Teeth, and the other anime-esque show they made, I think it was called Gun or something, is made by Rooster Teeth. I think part of the problem is Gun is in no way as well received as Ruby was, and I suspect that the fan base of people that liked Ruby have since aged out of wanting to watch something like Ruby. But yeah, slightly related to video games, there is a Ruby video game. The original voice actor of Claptrap at one time worked for Rooster Teeth. I wouldn't be surprised if the entire company shut down, and it really wouldn't affect me too much. If anything, it would be helpful, because then there would be even less of a relevant reason to play the Ruby video game and purchase that, which by all records is not that good, or all reviews. Doesn't seem like it's that good. Alright. Do this. And then do this. And then do this. And then we can do that. And then we can win. Next, Gematsu has an article for the PS4. A new Guilty Gear adds Mei, Sol, and Kai. So, new characters to Guilty Gear series. Or returning characters to the Guilty Gear series. I think particularly these games are 3D modeled, and they go through a lot of work to make their 3D models that are actually in the game look like they are hand-drawn. And I think they succeed better than anybody else at doing that. It probably takes way too much effort to do that, though. So I wouldn't expect to see any other fighting game take that up as a tradition. It'd probably be easier just to still draw things, hand animate things, and not use 3D modeling. Next we have a game on Steam called Civil the Game. This looks like an asset flip GTA clone. It does have a lot more in it as far as detail than most asset flip clones. But you can see all you're seeing is a small smattering of people and some backgrounds, and that's about it. This is early access, $9.99, English, allegedly full audio, multiplayer only, supposed to be a MMO. Yeah, that's never gonna happen. Scum VM put out another development notice, which is odd to have like 2 bits of information from the Scum VM team. The Prince and the Coward get support. I've never heard of this game. It was a game that was originally in Polish. They were in 2013. A group of 2 students were trying to support the game.
Almost out of time.
The game engine sat in limbo, however, because we were trying to work on the English translation. Unfortunately, the work is only about 1/4 of the way done. Nevertheless, they support the game now. So, all released versions are supported, including the Polish original, German release, and the Russian translation. Take a copy and give it a try. So, the game itself is not in English, which okay, yeah. This might be a interesting idea to improve the odds of that game getting translated. Another point-and-click adventure game. There probably is a decent collection of games that are point-and-click adventures that didn't get translated to English. That if they were translated to English, that there would be a cult interest in that, a cult following that would be willing to play it. Let's see. This and this.
Stop copying me!
This and this.
Contract!
Here. And here.
Job done.
Next we have a game on Steam called Kind Words, Lo-Fi Chill Beats to Write To. A game about writing nice letters to real people. Write and receive encouraging letters in a cozy room. Trade stickers and listen to chill music. Well, in all of it together. I'm surprised this is 100% positive with 52 reviews. I feel like there's been some review manipulation done here, and I don't usually speculate that. That being said, this actually looks like it is a finished product, a very short and simplistic product. $4.99, single player, English only. I'm gonna put this on the follow list. Indicate, maybe it was at the Indicate and it got a bunch of people to review it positively. It seems really expensive for what it is, though. So, I would have a hard time putting this on the wish list and actually buying it. And frankly, if it's a game where you actually have to write letters, I'm out. I have no interest in that at all. If it's a game where you're just kind of automatically writing letters, then it's kind of a pointless experience. So it's kind of a lose-lose scenario for me. I don't think I'd ever want to play something like that. Next, we have a game on Steam called Devilage or Devolage. Looks like a low-effort, low-polygon Roblox clone. Minecraft clone. Early access, 89 cents discounted, English only. We don't have to look any further. It's not even full screen. It's so bad. So, in comparison to dealing with issues, that was actually a mistake, but whatever. I think I'm gonna do perfectly fine. In comparison, we have a tweet from Epic Game Store who's been traditionally bad about tweeting out support messages. We're currently investigating an issue where non-US based, that's misworded clearly, Epic Game Store accounts are unable to use one-time purchases with PayPal. We will update as soon as we have information. Why not rephrase this long 3-line sentence to let's get rid of the "we are currently investigating PayPal issue on some accounts. One-time purchase PayPal issue. We'll update soon when we have information. Please be patient as we attempt to fix the situation." The worst response is here, though. Just a tweet later, not a response, just a new tweet. The issue has been resolved. Like, no information whatsoever as to what issue you're even talking about. That's pretty awful. Back here. Play this. Play this. Draw this. And then win. So, yeah, Epic Game Store really not doing a good job on any part. So do I want to just keep playing, or is there something else that would use the hero power more? I think Sea Warlock's a fine one to keep playing, and we'll just keep using the hero power. Gamma Sutra has an article. The UK committee argues loot boxes should be covered by gambling regulations. This is basically the outcome of EA getting up there and calling them surprise mechanics and being unhelpful and just acting like jerks. The UK probably was going to do, the committee was probably going to make these statements regardless of what any of the video game company had said. If you've ever even seen parts of the Nintendo committee hearings, video game hearings with Nintendo and Sega, you can see similar situations where usually if you get pulled in by a prime minister or a minister, I guess, in the UK, or a politician in general, let's just call them politicians, if you get pulled into an inquiry by a politician, it really is more likely to be an example of them wanting to grandstand and yell at you than to actually get any information or cooperation out of you. But you know what? One of the best ways to defuse and kill the steam of somebody who wants to just rant and rave, which is basically what politicians often do, is to just be calm, collective, and helpful. And certainly EA was not that. Like we're not within a mile of actually changing anybody's hearts and minds. So
Put this apple on your head.
it's questionable what they were even trying to do.
As you command.
Let me read this article a little bit more and see if there's the findings were compiled into a report released today, along with the committee's recommendation that regulation is needed. So then I guess in the UK it would go to Parliament, depending on whether Parliament is or is not dissolved at that time. And Parliament would then have to debate and create a law, is how I figure that would boil down to. There we go. The thing here is the problem with the UK taking the lead on this kind of regulation is it really would only maybe affect FIFA and mobile games in the UK, and that's kind of it. It's kind of the whole thing with the EU too. It's like the entirety of Europe can make rules and regulations, but if the United States is just going to be rah capitalism all the time and do whatever they want, there's not enough of a reason for the video game companies to actually change their actions. One can only hope that maybe the UK would push the US to implement several more rules, or just push the video game companies to self-control themselves a lot more than they do before they get rules and regulations on top of them.
I'm up to no good.
And one cannot deny whether you think it's good or bad or not harmful at all. It's never really fun for anybody to play a game with microtransactions and loot box mechanics. No gamer wants that. I would fully do a no true Scotsman on this and say no true gamer really wants that kind of surprise. I'm not going to call them surprise mechanics. What am I saying? Nobody wants loot boxes. Playing and keep on winning. Next we have a TechRaptor article. Ghoul Britannia, Land of Hope and Glory features a post-Brexit zombie invasion. Now I don't know how that is any real difference than any other kind of zombie game. It's apparently coming out somewhere at some time. Entering early access on PC October 9th for a price of $14.99. Final version early 2020. Yeah, zombie games don't need to be released in early access. You can see how this is really a game that is just a low effort zombie game that is trying to get more advertisement by using political shenanigans. The people of the UK who voted for Brexit, whether they knew what they were voting for or not, or whether they were lied to or not, at this point they need to just get it over with and have Brexit and try it for a few years, and then if they don't like it, go back into the EU.
Your soul shall be mine.
It's not unheard of in relationships for couples to get divorced or go through trial separations, and they almost never get back together. Sure, but it's not unheard of that it doesn't happen. Let's see. Moving on, Gamma Sutra has an article. Steam's latest discovery update tilts the algorithm away from popular games. Good, because the discovery algorithm, even though it is Discovery 2.0, which is what we're on now, I believe, is better than the first version. It still very heavily pushes people to the same popular games over and over again. And yeah, that doesn't really work well, because frankly, by the 20th time you've seen a game, either you're not interested in that game, or you already own it on some other storefront. So apparently there's an experiment here where they increased the unique game visits by 75%, and the average visits per game by 48%. Let me see if I can get some more details of this article. Since I don't really read any of these articles, I just skim them at best, or read the titles usually. It says, during a small-scale experiment, Valve notes that players in the test sample engaged with games that popped up in Steam's algorithmically generated recommended for you section more often than those running the previous version of the recommendation system. Both unique visits and average visits per game rose in the experimental group data outlined in the chart below. Tag-driven store areas also saw a boost in both purchases and wishlisting across more games, something Valve attributes to the new system's tendency to help Steam users find things that they don't even know they wanted. So, on the face of it, assuming that they aren't manipulating their information, it sounds like the new version they're experimenting with does a better job, which is good. I don't know how it would really affect me, because the discovery queue in particular, at this point, really, last time I used the discovery queue, which is, it's been a long time since we've had a summer sailors that wanted you to use the discovery queue. That would have been the last time I used it. So last time I used the discovery queue was probably 6 months ago, and at that point it was just showing me all the new games, because all the other games I'd either looked at the discovery queue, or I have wishlisted or following anyways. So there was nothing even for the queue to show me. That's a unique problem for me and pretty much nobody else. Just people like me that are looking at everything that's coming out. Come on. TechRaptor has a similar article, Steam updating Discovery to give better recommendations. So there will be recommended for you tags here that will play a role, and things more like the games similar to that, and an improved recommendation feed on the main page. See if we get some more details out of it. Do this. Three specific sections TechRaptor starts were the focus of the update: the recommendation feed, the more like this section, and the recommended for you section, which all of those are the same system basically. It's three different perhaps profiles or algorithms designed to recommend you three different types of games. Okay, let's hit this guy, and then hit this, and hit this, and then this. 1, 2, 3. There. Let's see. Valve noted that many people complained that these sections really felt like personalized recommendations. I don't think any of them were ever supposed to be that, or even related to their purchases. The recommended for you section, I guess, should have been like this, but the more like this section shouldn't have been, and the recommendation feed should have been. And usually they just show what was popular at the time, so people were definitely complaining about that, and no surprise. Yeah, it's not helpful. It's really not helpful to look at a game's web profile and just get shown more advertisements instead of things that could actually be informative. This was slightly surprising. Apparently, Modern Warfare won't be allowed in Russia, but that's not even a story I think that I'm talking about right now. Mostly I was gonna just show that here's another example of Infinity Ward saying, we're currently investigating an issue where some parties are unable to find a new match after previously finishing a match together. Again, a 3-line sentence. Disbanding and partying back up is a temporary solution while we work on a fix. Thanks for your patience. At least they say thanks for your patience at that point, but these are very wordy statements. They do.
I'll get right on it.
There we go.
Job's done.
In return. But yeah, also I had heard Modern Warfare was banned in Russia. We'll see if there's a real article here. So here we have a game on Steam that apparently is from Viacom, CBS Viacom. Seems like it's a VR psychedelic music experience. It's an interactive VR music video, so it better be free. And I don't know why you would need VR for something like that. Why not just make it a regular show? This is free to play. Okay, single player. Third party EULA for a free to play game seems ridiculous. English full audio. It's from Cannes Lions Grand Prix. So yeah, the tags here are not going to change in the Steam update, but tags are usually pretty useless. Is this game relevant to you? Section. This needs to be updated because for me personally, it never really does anything. On rare occasions, I'll see something for this section but not often. And I'm logged in right now, so it should say something. And then the section here, the more like this section, is all over the place. 1111 Memories Retold, Spyro Dragon. These two games don't even have anything close to being similar. Totally Accurate Battle Simulator. Sims 3's just regular. They're just recommending the most popular games. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Whereas if I was gonna go then to like my queue, I haven't been to a queue in a while. See, yeah, the queue here would just show me mostly games that had come out. I've viewed 5,672 games. I've wishlisted 2,622 games. I followed 748 games. I've marked 14 non-interested. So I'm so deep into the queue, discovery queue anyways, it wouldn't work for me. And it just won't ever work for me. Where recommendations for me, I think there's not another section here as you scroll down on the Steam store page that's recommendations. It's not specifically for you, just recommendations as in their games being advertised. Keeps on happening there if you keep on scrolling down. One thing on their storefront while we're here is, I believe, the Tokyo Game Show live from Tokyo link is here. So every game that's being mentioned from the Tokyo Game Show is getting a link. So there's a lot of games here, a lot of games I don't recognize and have never heard of. Trials of Mana not being one of them. Some of these are going to certainly make a big splash, where others very possibly not going to be anything other than niche Japanese games. And a decent chance that a lot of these are going to be bad games. And then you have things that are getting, maybe not even getting shown at the Tokyo Game Show, and yet they're getting highlighted. There's a decent amount of things here. A lot of which are just Japanese. These might be games from previous Tokyo Game Shows. When we scroll down, showcased at Tokyo Game Shows, top selling offers from Tokyo Game Show exhibitors. So whoever made SNK Wild Heroines Tag Team Frenzy, which I assume would be SNK, is a top exhibitor. So it probably wouldn't be a terrible time if you wanted to delve deep into playing the more Japanese of Japanese games. Because there's decent sales, particularly for a Japanese game. Like, you gotta remember, a lot of Japanese games never go on sale. So I wouldn't be surprised if you don't see a lot of these types of games during the fall sale or the October sale, November sale, or December sale that comes up. Tokyo Game Show might be the best time. Personally, too broke to buy any more games for the rest of the year at this point.
The light shall bring victory.
Your soul shall be
But I'll be fine. I've got plenty of games. And I think we're not really lined up to even need to buy anything. I don't think there's going to be anything amazing between now and the end of the year. Borderlands 3 will be the amazing thing, and it will probably suck a lot of the oxygen out of the room. Although I think I also saw a story that people who have Borderlands 3 right now are unable to launch it in DirectX 12 at all, which we had heard stories that the few reviewers that were given review codes were told to not mention the bugs, particularly the DirectX 12 bugs. For that to extend to DirectX 12 literally causes the game to be unlaunchable. That's a big difference. There's a difference between it's buggy in DirectX 12 and it doesn't work at all in DirectX 12. Moving on, we kind of need to hurry up because I'm going to be done with the news and done with all the daily quests really quick. TechRaptor has an article here. The World of Illuna game, the World of Illuna coming to games with Illuna Sentinel of Shards. Illuna must be a comic book? Never heard of it? I also saw an article that Zoe Quinn has been hired to work on like a Batman comic or something. Or I thought she was already working for DC, so it wouldn't be surprising if yeah, she's got more work for DC. But that article, that title could have been completely misleading, so I needed to do more research if I wanted to report on it. It doesn't really matter, though. Yeah, there's also been more stories and titles that I've been mostly skipping. Anything that says Zoe Quinn in it, there's been some more stories just saying, oh yeah, here's my take on why I think what she claimed was true wasn't true. So it seems like everybody has an opinion on that, and that all seem to mostly collide with, yeah, she was not being completely accurate in her description of events. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Canarium is now free on the Epic Games Store. Next week's game is a mystery, but it's probably Batman. I suppose it's news to mention the Epic Games Store free games. I think once a week I will just go to the Epic Games Store since they got me in, they suckered me in with Control. I might as well bother to just build up a emergency backup collection of games just in case that the worst case scenario happens and Steam shuts down someday. Basically, I'm doing the same thing with Twitch Prime. In Twitch Prime, I have the free games come out, and I put them on. I claim them, and just in case. Next we have a game on Steam here called Die Young, which the video so far has just been this female protagonist character in bed with this male protagonist. What this has to do with what the actual gameplay that's being shown is, I have no idea. Maybe it's supposed to be a horror game and this is all in a dream sequence. But yeah, this looks like a just a survival game. It's from Indigala, which Indigala sells games and I guess publishes them, but I don't know if they have any credibility whatsoever of being good as a publisher or publishing good quality things. So let's go ahead and do this.
You are not
This game is rated very positively with a high number of reviews, so apparently there is something to this.
I see a dark future.
So I guess it goes to the follow list. It's discounted to $13.99. They're saying it's similar to Zombie, which Zombie in the concept it was a cool idea. In actual implementation, when I played it, it really wasn't. It's English full audio, 48 achievements. and it's single player only, so it's not like a survival game against yeah, I'll give this a follow and consider it a little bit more. I unfortunately can't just write off every survival game just because. This doesn't look amazingly great, but it doesn't look terrible either. It looks like something comparable to Fallout. No, not Fallout, but Far Cry. Jeez, I should have drawn that card first. That would have been so much smarter. Die Young really is an example of a game that I would like to see people tell me about it, and like actual people on my channel saying, hey, yeah, actually I've seen this game, I've heard about it, I've played it. But I guess that is a little bit backwards. That's what my job is. Okay. This part, and then this part.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
This guy's being cheeky.
Why do you call?
Gamma Sutra has an article here. Nintendo's first Ring Con game is a Switch fitness RPG called Ring Fit Adventure. So, yeah, this ridiculous ring accessory that they're selling is obviously some kind of exercise type device that you put Joy-Cons in. And yeah, they made a stupid video game around it. It's kind of ridiculous how these things get made. Particularly, what's crazy about this is they just released the Switch Lite that can't dock. So because you can't dock, you're only going to be able to play this with the original Switch that can dock to the screen. There's no way that you're going to be able to play this in tablet mode. And see, the weird thing here is, I know some old people that got a Wii given to them and did Wii Fit stuff with the balance board, but that only works in the sense that when there's... It really only works when the Wii is close to free, and the game is close to free, and the balance board is close to free. If it starts costing money, if it is $350, oh my goodness. If it's potentially going to be $350 or more to try and convince some old person who wants to exercise, or even a young adult that wanted to exercise, to buy a Switch that they have no other desire or use for, just to do this, it's going to be way too expensive. It would be way cheaper to just go get a used Wii and a Wii Fit balance board and play it with that setup. Moving on, Gamma Sutra has an article here. Nope, that's the article we were just talking about. Yeah. Let's see, the game and the ring are going to be bundled for $80. So with $250 for the Switch original, I believe, would be what it costs, plus $80. You're talking $330 minimum, which at that point you could get a rather nice stationary bike or nice set of dumbbells. You could be a lot closer to better researched, better built, better thought out exercise equipment. TechRaptor has an interesting article here. The indie publisher Nicholas is accused of ghosting developers and withholding patches. Now, Nicholas they made the handled console ports for games like Binding of Isaac and Cave Story. I've seen Nicholas have a few games published on Steam. Some seemed good, some seemed not so good. So Kotaku's Jason Schreier, released a lengthy expose where he details behind the scenes situations. These lengthy exposés always come right now when views drop, so they start putting out clickbait articles as soon as summer ends.
Your soul shall be mine.
One of the complaints from an anonymous and public sources that repeatedly popped up is that Nicholas ghosted developers. If you're not hip with the lingo, ghost is essentially ignoring people entirely. So what? Like, it's not good business usually to ignore people that you might want to do business with or have done business with in the past, but it's also reasonable if you have limited time and resources to not bother to reply to people, particularly if it's a game developer who's being rather needy or demanding. So it really would have to come down to in what way did they legally neglect their duty to respond. Devolver Digital had a conversation with Nicholas about working on the PlayStation 4 port of Enter the Gungeon, but the deal fell apart after Devolver was unable to contact Nicholas after the initial meeting. Okay, fine, they weren't interested. This is not really a big complaint to worry about. Says one former employee feels this may be less about malice and more about incompetence. Quote, Nicholas has a history of taking on more development projects than they have time for, says the unnamed ex-employee. So this entire article that's being quoted, very possibly coming from this one potentially disgruntled ex-employee. Let's see. Here's a tweet from one of the people I think that works at Nicholas. So, save me, Mr. Taco had a patch ready for a while, but the publisher at Nicholas hasn't published it. And then someone who isn't at Nicholas responded, unfortunately the game did not yet make back what we put into it. We have a policy of stringent QA testing before pushing release, and we do not have the space in our budget to QA test the patch so we can put it out. Okay, I bet this happens in the background a lot. I'm sure there's patches for all kinds of games that could be put out but don't get put out. That's kind of the beauty of open source software and self-publishing software, where you can just put out a patch whenever you feel like it. But yeah, if a publisher is investing money to advertise and release a game, they're not going to put out a patch that could introduce new bugs without QA testing it. That's reasonable.
I'm free, and so is my curse.
So you would have to QA it. If you have to QA something, it is going to cost money. If the game isn't worth that effort, it doesn't get a patch. We've all seen this in video games, and it always sucks, but it is just the way business has to be done, unfortunately.
Stop copying me!
Let's see.
Stop copying me! Sure! Sure, send the little guy. Sure, send the little guy. Hey,
There we go. And then the third paragraph here is that the president, Tyler Rodriguez, who was the person who... no, wait a minute. This is Tyrone Rodriguez responded, and then the article says it's Tyler Rodriguez, so they've got the name wrong, apparently, unless there's two Rodriguezes in the business. Is alleged to have several offensive comments over text communication, as shown in screenshots supplied to Kotaku. Which this is the part that this is the reason why Kotaku is doing this article. Allegedly, they made fun of Obama, made fun of Nintendo. Okay, so the person is childish. Anti-Semitic statements allegedly too.
So many possibilities.
Binding of Isaac developer Edmund McMillan stated he would put a stop to plans to work with the company for 2 of their future games, and one of which was releasing later this year. This is actual newsworthy reporting, where a lot of this other stuff is not. Let's see. Nicholas responded, developing and publishing games is a dream. For the staff of nearly 20 that work at Nicholas. Some of our team have been in companies for almost a decade.
why me?
Oops. Some of the company has been some of the team has been with the company for almost a decade, and we work hard to create an environment where we treat our members with respect, and they are what make the company. We do not condone abusive workplace environments and discrimination and help people from all walks of life, blah blah blah. Regarding the companies under mutual NDA with Nicholas Devolver and the Game Bakers, 3 companies, we can only comment that we do not have any signed publishing agreements with them and never have. So Nicholas has never done business with Devolver and the Game Bakers, according to their statements. So yeah, they were ghosted, perhaps, but that just means that they didn't waste their time talking to somebody that they couldn't do business with. So overall, it seems like it's a pretty not news story from Kotaku, which is what you often get from Kotaku, and TechRaptor is just republishing them. It's slightly informative but not actionable to a video game player to know that the Binding of Isaac developer is not going to do any more business with them, and that might affect the release schedule of The Legend of Bumbo. But that's kind of the only thing that's actionable at all, is that maybe if you had a pre-order for that game, which may not even be available for pre-purchase yet, maybe you're a little less you're going to be more cautious and cancel that pre-order. That's the only thing you can really take from that. You can't really, I think, legitimately complain as a video game consumer if a company runs their company badly because they have only 20 employees and doesn't respond to every email, text, and phone call. Plenty of companies do that. I personally could be accused of ghosting hundreds of people who randomly or accidentally call my phone over the course of a year, just because I don't bother to call back numbers that I don't recognize, because that's really what that would boil down to. Is you could call that ghosting too. Alright, let's switch over to the Americas account now. As far as sending offensive text, I have no idea what the nuance and context there was. Could just be there's the president was an edgelord at some point, and they were putting out edgelord memes and things like that, or it could be that it's just all false. And frankly, if you're going to tell me that a CEO of a company is a scumbag, that's true for every CEO that's ever existed in the world. Pretty much. So that's not news. That is not news at all. This Kotaku article sounds to me another like another cancel culture style hit piece designed to just give them views and not really do anything informative. Let's see.
Morgul versus Anduin.
Oh, there was another Borderlands 3 thing that was tweeted out. Photo mode and Twitch EchoCast extension will be limited to PC players at release. We appreciate your patience as we work to enable them for the console players in the day 30 update for Borderlands 3. So 30 days minimum until anybody on the console gets photo mode or Twitch EchoCast support. Although the EchoCast support itself probably plays less of a factor because, well, you would be streaming from your console for it to have any effect, and I don't think a ton of people do that. Some do, certainly. TechRaptor has an article here. Sea of Thieves microtransactions and pets come with the Pirate Emporium. Year of the Pirate, still not happening. My guess was wrong. Truth is that there hasn't been a year of anything ever. It was always a joke when either Tomb Raider 1 or 2 of the rebooted series tried to claim it was going to be the year of the bow, and The Last of Us also had a character with a bow. It was a giant bomb joke, and I'm just stretching it out to the point of it not making any sense anymore. But yeah, Sea of Thieves apparently still a thing. I doubt very many people are still playing it, but being published by Microsoft, I guess it just has to keep on going forward, whether they really want to or not. I'm sure by this time next year we won't be hearing anything about Sea of Thieves, and then give it maybe 2 more years and I wouldn't be surprised if it completely shuts down. Gamasutra has an article here. Chris Bateman's journey from Discworld Noir led to the making of Lords of Midnight Tribute Silk. This sounds like an article about books, not about video games. So why is Gamatsu writing an article on this? Apparently there was some video game that was made at some point, maybe, or maybe not. No, this very possibly is just an article written by somebody at Gamasutra that wanted to just talk about random things, which certainly seemed to happen before. To a minion. And then 1 here. And then 1 here. And then well, see, we're in a weird position now. We're gonna go long and just have 1 long episode today. But also, I still have plenty of news, so I need to just kind of start burning through things. So we have a game called Deep Diving VR. I don't think this visually is polished enough to want to do that. But I think I might give it a 5. It's discounted to $16.99. English with a bunch of other language supports. Might be something here to this, but I kind of don't think there would be. Yeah. I think if you were to think about it, you would probably rather play the game Abzu or something else than just regular 3D and have better looking graphics and more of a real regular experience than have the hassle of VR and this weird laser gun that apparently you have in this game. Alright. 5 damage. Next we have a game on Steam called Men of War Assault Squad Cold War, Assault Squad 2 Cold War. It's very negative. I can tell by the name itself it's a name confusion game. It actually visually looks better than most low effort games by far, so it must just play like garbage. 1C Entertainment. What else is 1C Entertainment put out? Let's see. I've seen some of these games before, but they're not popping up. There's a couple of ones that have been on the follow list, and a couple I even own. So I'd say 1C Entertainment's probably about 50-50 on quality. Pros looks gone, cons 2 factions, 5 maps. Bad effects and destruction, feels like a mobile remake is the first most helpful review. So Men of War Assault Squad 2 Cold War not making it to the follow list, and I'm perfectly fine with that. So TechRaptor has an article here. 2 expansions for Control announced. Alan Wake crossover hinted at. So I said I had seen the letters AWE in the previous game, Quantum Break from Remedy, like they were foreshadowing Altered World events in Control. I think either the concept and the phrase Altered World events had already been in their heads at that point, or AWE stands for several things, like the Alan Wake experience or experiment or something like that. That's my guess as far as what's going on with all of that, is that there very possibly may have been an AWE element in Alan Wake 2 also. So the article continues. 2 Control expansions have been announced as part of the game's post-launch lineup. The paid pieces of DLC will be supplemented with some free content that will arrive in the coming months, and that's not all. One of the 2 expansions may very well be a Control Alan Wake crossover. So here's the problem now, because there's potentially a situation here where there may be like 2 free paid expansions in then 2 paid expansions for Control. I don't want to play Control that much. I didn't even really finish the first game. So if I jump in and look at the free expansions, I'm fine with that, but I'm not going to buy the expansions on the Epic Games Store. I'm not going to give money to the Epic Games Store for that. That's ridiculous. So then the only thing I could do is beg somebody to gift me Control on Steam and give me the complete deluxe edition, unless I have the complete deluxe edition already, which I don't know if I do or not. What happened when I got The Witcher 3 for free when I bought my previous video card is they definitely only gave me the first version, the main game. They totally did not give me any DLC. But also Blood and Wine as a bit of DLC didn't get announced for quite a while. So the roadmap is in fall of 2019 we'll get photo mode, which I don't think photo mode is going to be as cool as people think. In December of 2019 we'll get expeditions, which I suspect that means you'll go to areas, you'll find some kind of portal that takes you outside of the office and into a different dimension. It probably won't be that interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if it's just more light switches that take you to the hotel, and then from the hotel you can go to other doors besides the door with the black pyramids symbol on it. Then in early 2020 they have the Foundation. We saw the Foundation for a brief second. I don't think that that's particularly an interesting area to do too much to. So yeah, I'm not really sure what they're gonna accomplish with that. And then in what does that say? Mid 2020 is expansion to the AWE.
Uther versus Garrosh.
Victory or death! I
So,
will fight with
very
honor.
possibly, photo mode and expeditions are the free content, and the paid content is the Foundation and AWE. So I definitely would not come back and play Control just to do photo mode and expeditions, unless expeditions is something yeah, so unless the other unless the I don't even know how to say it, like, unless all of that is free, I probably am not coming back to Control. It says Expeditions is a new way to play the game that should arrive sometime in December. Jesse teams up with the security chief Arish in an attempt to explore the formation and the surrounding area. This will be a very tough challenge for players to overcome. I already thought the game was too difficult. What it's important to mention here is, while they're adding photo mode in Expeditions, they're not adding a difficulty setting, it seems. The Foundation will explore the history of the oldest house. You'll explore what lies beneath the bureau. And then the second one is AWE, standing for Altered World Events. It'll take you to the investigation sector where you explore these mysterious phenomenon. A careful look at the logo for AWE reveals that it may very well be a first hint at a Control Alan Wake crossover. And then they supply here an image for comparison. So Alan Wake, here you have a character with a stupid flashlight you had to play. Here you have a light symbol. I don't know if you're really seeing anything else though that, like, not really seeing anything else that lines up with that. Just the light and
I must move
a
quickly.
slight comparison, maybe, of the skyline. Maybe. It really feels like it's a stretch.
Reporting for duty.
I think people want it to be Alan Wake, and that's probably they have some nods and hints to Alan Wake, but I don't think they're going to have a full expansion around it, because then that would require people to have played Alan Wake or Alan Wake American Nightmare, and the licensing problems around Alan Wake and playing that have not been amazingly great in the past couple of years, so it's not like everybody has played Alan Wake and knows about it.
Your flaws are your strength.
Yeah, I was listening to the Beastcast just earlier, and it's still kind of 50-50, but most of the people in the east coast of Giant Bomb are loving Alan Wake more than I think than I did. So
Reporting for duty.
yeah, seems to be a split there still. TechRaptor has an article, Astral Chain review, awesome anime action.
No tune can hold me.
Yeah, I've heard Astral Chain from a couple people, a couple of reviewers seem to say it's better than what I suspected. It's not apparently just a kind of dungeon crawler game. It's got some other things you do. Here, the TechRaptor is given an 8.5. That's a surprisingly high price, high review. Alright. Can we do anything else? No, we're gonna probably lose. The summary is Astro Chain features a perfectly realized world filled into wonderful characters and awesome architecture. It runs perfect on the Nintendo Switch and looks stellar too. Is it on PC? The predictable story is one of the only faults in this over-the-top, incredible fun action game. Pro's amazing action-packed gameplay, great art style, runs well, plethora of collectibles, cons, predictable cliche stories, some annoying side quests. Yeah, I think Astral Chain is going to come to PC eventually. If it doesn't and it's a Switch-only game, well then okay, fine. It's a Switch-only game from Platinum Games, and I don't... It would be cool if it came to PC. If it doesn't, I'm fine with that too. Should be playing this Paladin. Or this Priest. Gamer Sutra has an article here. Dreamcast developers reflect on how the industry has changed since the console's debut 20 years ago. Short article here. Honestly, I don't think the Dreamcast really affected the video game world as much as people think it did, or really introduced a lot of new technologies or concepts. In a weird way, it did bring about Windows CE, but then Windows CE kind of never did anything either. So, yeah, take that for what it is. The little memory units were in the Nintendo 64 first. Memory units with screens built in was an interesting concept.
Is someone injured?
But
Is someone injured?
I don't think that's amazingly groundbreaking, because Tamagotchis, I think, probably were in Japan before that happened. CD-ROM support. I guess maybe the Dreamcast beat the PlayStation 1 for CD-ROM support. Internet support. Yes, the Dreamcast did have internet support, but if you're going to try to credit the Dreamcast as the first major console to have internet support, I think you're probably ignoring a couple of examples in which there were some other games that had modems built directly into their hardware. For I think there might have been something for the Game Boy, or there might have been something for the Sega Genesis. The only thing that I really wouldn't
Right away.
disagree with
Right away.
is that I think the Dreamcast definitely did a decent job of making and releasing a few highly beloved games. Unfortunately, a lot of those highly beloved games were not supported after the Sega Dreamcast's failure and ported to another console or given life as sequels or remakes. So, yeah, there could have been some Sega Dreamcast sequel series that are still going strong today, but they really aren't. Suppose it's slightly fair to also say I was a big Nintendo fanboy, so the Dreamcast didn't fully interest me.
Right away. Right away.
Next, we have an article for TechRaptor. Gears 5 review. Let the past die. Kill it if you have to. There's the subtitle there. I heard one take that Gears 5 kind of goes with war is bad as the theme, which I think probably wasn't the theme of the previous Gears of War series. It was much more of a bro action series where, yeah, war is fine. We love it. They reviewed this game on Windows 10 PC. They gave it a 9.0 amazing. The summary here is that it says Gears 5 campaign is the best the series has seen, and escape mode is a brilliant new addition. It's fun to play and beautiful to look at, and full of some of the best characters the series has seen. Pros are a fantastic story with wonderful characters, great voice acting, super fun gameplay, awesome new weapons and enemies, great new features and refinements, and escape mode is brilliant. The cons, and I've heard this from other people, are that the open world missions occasionally drag, the competitive multiplayer feels like another game entirely, and horde mode is too much dead time, which puts Gears 5 right at the top of the type of game that I put on the wish list. The only problem is
Want some peace and
I
quiet?
don't know how to play that series right now. I really just don't know how I do it. There's four Gears of War games before Gears 5. None of them are on Steam as far as I understand. And so I just have to jump in the 5th series. It would be the equivalent of starting to watch all of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies within the game. It's just a bad time. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article here for the PC, PS4, Switch, and Xbox One. 4-player co-op action game Munchkin Quacked Quest has been announced. I don't think this has anything to do with that card game, Munchkin. Or maybe it does.
Back to work.
Yeah, Asmodee Digital, I believe, is the one that makes card games, usually. So this looks a lot like just might be something. But if it's 4-player co-op, could you play it as a single-player game, as a beat-em-up dungeon crawler? Munchkin as a card game, I think, is probably more interesting than what this is.
I wonder.
Yeah. Interesting thought, at least. Let's see. Sauce,
Everywhere.
and then heal, and then double, kill. So here's the Steam page. Single player and multiplayer.
It's time for a little blood.
Alright, I'll put it on the fall list. It's early though, coming out in autumn of 2019. I still think you probably want to play the card game first, but the problem with a lot of these card games and tabletop games is you have to have people that are around and want to play with you. If you don't have that, you might as well play the digital version. Let's go back to playing Shaman cards. Next we have a game on Steam called Touring Karts. Basically every kart racing game, if it looks even slightly decent as far as a Mario Kart clone, should be on the fall list. This one is in VR, which limits the chance that I'd ever buy it, because I'm almost certainly never going to buy it. It's $17.99 discounted for VR. That's not too expensive. It says it has a bunch of language. 48 achievements. It seems a little high, but it does seem like there's some visual polish on this. So I'll put this on the fall list. If it is still reviewed well when I do my next fall list cleanup, it'll stay on the fall list because it's VR. Also, it needs to come out of early access. But yeah, in the long run, unless I somehow bought a VR headset, and I have no idea why I would do that, I'm still not actually ever buy it. It just goes to show how limiting you are to your own product if you decide to put it for VR only. Alright, let's start with this, I guess. Next we have a game called Sword of the Slayer, which is another text-based game, which I believe its video is trying to sell itself as a game that had no sound effects at all. We haven't been seeing any text-based games for a long time. It's weird to see them come back. $2.99 discounted, English only. I would never cover a text-based game. I'd never read that much text. That'd drive me crazy. It's not what I want to do with my time. Next we have a game on Steam called Simple Railroad. It looks like this is a railroad building strategy game. Looks like it's pretty low effort. Maybe mobile port, just low effort game in general. $8.99 discounted, English and Russian. Yeah, looks like a low effort Russian game. Here we've got another one of these Area 51 raid joke games. They can't stop all of us, which was one of the quotes from that troll joke. And the response is, "Oh yes, they can." This is early access, free to play, English. Almost certainly, I would not be surprised one bit. I in fact am guessing that this is definitely the case. There are state actors that are pushing the Area 51 raid joke to the maximum to see if they can actually get somebody to get themselves shot and cause some kind of uprisal or discontent between the U.S. government and U.S. citizens more than there already exists, of which there's plenty of that already. And I won't name any specific country because I suspect while there may be one country that's spending a lot more money on it, I bet there's at least 4 or 5 different countries still pushing these kind of shenanigans. Right. So that's a minion, deal 1 damage. Give the character 3. And summon these guys. I'm just trying to play cards. Next we have a game on Steam called NASCAR Heat 4. It looks like a real NASCAR game. It looks pretty. I think it deserves to be on the fall list. It's $49.99, English full audio. Of course the price would have to be way lower than that for me to really want to play it. I'm not sure I'd really want to play a NASCAR game in particular. Of all the racing games, one where you are guaranteed to always be on asphalt going in a circle, that's not very interesting at all. The Dirt Rally series sounds a lot more interesting. Or any of the other Dirt games would make a lot more sense. Well, I see the end of the tunnel now, so we can just start burning through things. TechRaptor has an article, Order Up, Burger Time's Party Plates October release date. So this Burger Time sequel is finally got an October release date. Probably isn't going to be a great game, but I don't know. It's surprising anybody's even bothering to try and bring Burger Time back. It's going to have 100 stages, which is quite a lot, I guess. Oh, I suppose it's worth mentioning that Billy Mitchell is threatening to sue people. The Guinness's, or Genesis, I guess it's Guinness's records. Like, he's threatening to sue them for defamation if they don't put out a press release retracting that he cheated on, well, he's making an interesting argument, or his lawyers are, that they said or implied that he cheated on his perfect Pac-Man score, which was one of the scores that was removed due to accusations that he cheated on his Donkey Kong score. And I don't think he was the dragster guy at all. I think that was a different person that cheated on the dragster racing. And Twin Galaxies partners with Guinness's for all video game records and awards. Twin Galaxies seems to have been lackadaisical, to say the least, about verifying whether somebody was cheating or not. And I imagine there's a ton of cheating that's been happening in a lot of game records. Personally, I think a lot of his legal argument was getting experts to say that it could be done without using MAME or some kind of modification. Honestly, I don't think he actually was using MAME to cheat. I think he was probably using some custom software setup he may have had programmed himself that would be emulation of some sort, but not MAME emulation. It really isn't he's kind of arguing a different point, and this is what lawyers love to do, is find a point that you can win on and argue that instead of arguing the point that is more realistic. I think personally it's unlikely that he could have gotten the high scores in the times for some of the Donkey Kong things. at that time. I think Billy Mitchell, as he got older, he got slower, and he just had to hold on to those records. And he would have been so much better if you've ever seen the King of Kong documentary. It would have been so much better if he had just bowed out. Like, got that high score, held it for an extremely long time, and just been like, okay, congratulations. I've finally been beat. Nobody's gonna hold the title longer than me. Pull that old wrestling move, where you can claim you're still better because you held the title for longer. But that's not what he did. In the King of Kong, like, Steve Wiebe beat his high score in a live presentation, I believe, after beating his live score from a home tape, and that home tape being suspect and being thrown out, really seemingly to be no fault of Steve Wiebe. So as soon as in the live demonstration when he beat the record the second time, Billy Mitchell, within like 24 hours, released a tape showing he had an even higher score. And it may not have been that he was emulating in that instance at all. It may have just been that he was straight up manipulating the video. A lot of this may very well be a case that Billy Mitchell actually did nothing wrong, and the King of Kong documentary just made him out to be the bad guy. Even at that, this new lawsuit only continues to solidify the appearance that he's the bad guy in the eyes of anybody who's seen King of Kong. It's not going to solve anything, or get any fans back. So we'll see if the Twin Galaxies or Guinnesses actually do publish a retraction. I suspect they won't, and if that goes to any kind of defamation lawsuits. Unfortunately, in the United States, defamation lawsuits, even if valid, have a high tendency to never go anywhere or in any way be finished. So there's probably a lot more legal wrangling if there's more legal wrangling to be done, and the story probably will haunt everybody involved for the rest of their lives. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article, Moving TechRaptor Forward, New Site Design and Release Roadmap. My hope is that they can fix their website so it loads faster. So they're on to like their fourth redesign over the course of a relatively small amount of time. I can say on their website though, the green with the background image is wasteful. The dark layout is not what we're doing. We're in light layouts now. Just so looking at this picture here, I bet this is what TechRaptor starts to look like going forward. Apparently there's some Kickstarters that back TechRaptor. Didn't know that. I'd really like to see them improve their dumb website though. Speed it up more than anything else. Just barely got that in time. I don't know if that's really video game news though, that a video game website is updating the website. Next we have a game on Steam called Parachronism, Order of Chaos. This looks like this is probably a cheap Chinese 3D adventure game, just reusing assets that from something else. It feels kind of like it was trying to be MMO assets that got put together. $9.99, English only. Okay, maybe it's a cheap English game. Then, yeah, this looks like garbage though. Definitely looks like garbage. Single player. $9.99. You could have pre-ordered it for $7.99 earlier. So they've already raised the price on you as of the release date. I've never heard of this developer. I bet they've got nothing else. Yeah. That's not making it to the fall list. There we go. Let's see. Gamatsu has an article for the PS4. Demo Reborn DLC Egoist Special Selection announced. Demo. I've heard of Demo, but I can't remember what it was. I think it's like a music game. Yeah, it's a rhythm game. So more DLC for this rhythm game. It includes 5 songs. TechRaptor has an article here. Five Nights at Freddy's AR Spooky Delivery brings spooky animatronics to your phone. So, AR being augmented reality, mobile game, I guess. So, apparently we needed another Five Nights at Freddy's game. You can't go 5 months without a new Five Nights at Freddy game. It feels like. There we go. Since today is Friday the 13th, I might as well mention that at some point, maybe even right now, the game Slayaway Camp or Friday the 13th, the game on mobile phones, maybe just Android phones, was free. I installed it. I think I installed it about a week ago, and then I forgot I installed it, and then played it. It's a simplistic sliding game. It's not that interesting, frankly. I may play it a little bit more, but if I do, it's only because I'm looking for something to waste my time. None of the Friday the 13th games are that interesting. Not even the Friday the 13th game that actually had the best chance of being interesting. In all fairness, I don't think the Friday the 13th movies are that interesting either. The most interesting thing, I suppose, I could say about Friday the 13th as far as the horror movie series is there is a YouTuber who made comedic videos who also is a bit of an actor. He has a band, and they released a few music videos on YouTube. The band, I believe, is called Wolfie's Alright or Wolfie's Just Fine. Wolfie, WOLFIE. And one of the videos, the music videos he put out, centers around a kid watching Friday the 13th when he was too young, and it partially traumatizing him. And it's a pretty good song, so go search YouTube for Wolfie's Alright and see if you can find the video. You might find the other video, which, okay. So there's another video on another song that's not around Friday the 13th. It's a decent song also. I imagine the entire soundtrack's pretty good if I tried to listen to it all. Remember, I'm really just playing cards right now. Let's go and squelch this guy. Tech Raptor has an article, Sunless Skies Hoarder Update, adds new upgrades, new relay, and more. I don't think anybody's playing Sunless Skies. However, so if you are playing that game, I guess an update's cool, but I don't think too many people actually are. Did I play enough cards? Yes, I did. So now it's just a Paladin or Shame and Victory is the only thing we need. Well, actually I think we need to go back to the Asian account and we need to do the Tavern Brawl too. So that's something to consider. Paladin or Warrior? What do you think the odds are that I'd actually win with the Warrior? That would be crazy. I think 0. Next we have a game on Steam called Angry Golf. This looks like a low effort Angry Birds / golf combo game. It looks like a bunch of asset flips. It's $1.19 discounted, English with alleged full audio. No interest there from me.
Let the hunt begin. I will fight with honor.
We don't need to. Okay, we can talk about this article, I guess, a little bit. Tech Raptor has an article. We already knew about this. SNK announces a Neo Geo Arcade Stick Mini Pro console. We had seen a top-down view of this. We hadn't seen the side here. These look like these might be USB-C ports and a headphone plug. If these aren't USB-C ports, I don't know what they would be. And it seems like you can also buy controllers, 8-way control sticks to start, select, and this, I don't know if it's a left bump and right bump. That's still, unless there's 2 left and right bumps, that's still fewer than the fight stick would have. Take a look here. You have a fight stick arrangement of 8 buttons, a start and select hidden here, so it might be a little bit hard to see. It's white on white. 8-way control stick. I suspect there is no left bump here or left bump here. I suspect that there's no buttons on the side as if you were playing with a pinball style game. So there would have to be a left trigger and a left bump and a right trigger and a right bump just to have the same amount of buttons and have compatibility. On the other hand, it seems like it's coming HDMI out, and that means that this very much is going to be big enough to put a Raspberry Pi 4 in there if whatever equipment is in there is not hackable or not powerful enough. And so that's the width is 43 centimeters, so by 21.5 centimeters. It's in Imperial. I wish it was in inches so I'd have a clue what that is. Alright. Let me think.
I must move quickly.
Let me think.
Yeah, that seems like that's probably the right size. Like, if it isn't the right size of a real fight stick, then it's approaching. It's approaching a something that would be a little bit smaller than a real fight stick, and yet bigger than a toy feeling fight stick. So I don't know how that would really synchronize.
To battle.
See, this guy is poisonous, so I can't do anything until I can get rid of him. Interestingly enough, apparently it also acts as joystick mode instead of, so the Neo Geo toys that have been sold can now have this plug into it. So the question really just boils down to the quality of the build and how expensive it is. It's also going to have 20 built-in games, which is a decent collection, I suppose. When you look at it this way, it also seems like there's a little bit of a bump and a curve for ergonomics. Looks like you can rest your wrist in quite a few places, although maybe not enough of wrist rest here, or maybe too much for some people. So when you start getting into fight sticks and pros, that I'm sure everybody has an opinion there.
I must move quickly.
Yeah, build quality and price would be my main factors on the Neo Geo Arcade Stick Pro Mini console. I think the Neo Geo being like an NES Mini makes a lot more sense than the Sega Genesis Mini, perhaps. Or it makes at least as much sense as the Sega Genesis Mini. This, and then this, and then this, and I cannot do anything else. So I do that, and then it's now either this one kills me and dies itself, or it leaves me alone. Next, Gamer Switcher has an article, Get a Job. Afterthought is hiring an Unreal Engine 4 programmer in Henderson, Nevada. I don't believe I've heard of any other jobs or companies in Henderson, Nevada, or Nevada in general. But I also don't know who Afterthought is. Let's see. So, can I quickly figure out where? I will try Warrior. Let's see. Afterthought takes, their website is a website called Find the Isle. Seems like they have one game. It's some kind of dinosaur survival game, as best as I can tell.
The hunt begin.
Sounds like it's a new company trying to make something new. They have like a Steam community, and that's it. I'm not gonna immediately dismiss somebody trying to make a game with dinosaurs in it, because dinosaurs will always be cool, but there have been a lot of, almost 100% of all dinosaur games have been bad too. TechRaptor has an article. Neo 2 locks down an early 2020 release in a new trailer. Neo 2, interesting. Feels like Neo just came out less than a year ago. Unless I'm thinking of a different game, which I might be. Maybe Neo was the game that was the kind of Dark Souls in Japan with different weapons, and a lot of weapons that you had to use different weapons against different enemies. Maybe that, yeah, I think that's what this game is. Yeah, if I vaguely recall, Neo 1 was so hard and that it was reviewed as being such a hard game that it wasn't really worth the effort to try and play it. I think that's what I got from it. And I also don't think it also ever went on sale or went on PC, so I don't think it was a big issue either. Anyways, TechRaptor has an article. Remember No Russian? Call of Duty Modern Warfare reportedly banned in Russia. Let's see. Apparently, Remember No Russian is a phrase from one of the Call of Duty games. This is a Reset Era repost. So this is, I would take this as unconfirmed rumor at this point. It would, I think, need some more research before I believe that it's actually banned in all of Russia. There might be, it might be complete BS. It might be it's banned in one country or one county or one city. Might have been banned by some judge who didn't have the authority to ban it. So we'll just put that as unconfirmed rumor. Really doesn't affect, I think, any of the Modern Warfare players anyways. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Borderlands 3 unplayable on PC for DirectX 12 users. Game-breaking bug primarily affecting those using DirectX 12. Those attempting to run it on PC while running into a problem where the first loading screen after the intro splash screen never loads. It's a load screen of Borderlands character claptrap dancing. More than one megathread on Borderlands subreddit has already been flooded with people encountering DX12 loading bug. It's possible it affects DX11 too, but most people are switching to DX11 as a solution. However, those stuck on DX12 and unable to get away from the loading screen, two solutions are below. Let's see. Says before trying either solution, DX12 isn't always broken, but often takes longer to load than DX11. One way to get around it is editing the file manually. The other solution is to delete the saved folder. Okay. The article continues to say, Polygon briefly mentioned the developer asking them not to play on DirectX 12 version. So, 2K and Gearbox knew that there were problems. So, there's definitely not a great launch going on here. You would, I think, I would have preferred personally that more more care would have been put into the release of Borderlands 3. I guess, though, you could also make the argument this isn't really the release of Borderlands 3. The real release of Borderlands 3 is 6 months from now when it comes to Steam. But yeah, that's a kind of lame argument. Golden weapon card. Boy, does that look golden. Just gold on gold on gold. Gamma Sutra has the same article. Steam's latest discovery update tilts the algorithm away from popular games. We already had talked about this. I may not get the victories on screen. I'm getting a little sleepy. I'm getting better though. Like, it's waking up at 2 or 4 in the morning, doing a little recording before I do a stream on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Which means I'm actually getting some streaming done on the same day, some recording done on the same day as I stream Hearthstone, which I really wasn't ever doing that.
Light the fuses!
There we go. So, alright, next we have a Gamma Sutra article. 7 great minigames that game developers should study. Let's see. Pokemon Diamond and Pearl's Underground minigames. The Fallout 4 Pip-Boy minigames. Tekken's loading screen version of Galaga. Red Dead Redemption's Poker and Blackjack, Animal Crossing's Nintendo minigames, The Witcher's 3 Gwent, Shenmue's minigames. I don't know why those specific minigames would need to be studied. I don't know why any minigame needs to be studied, other than perhaps if you're going to make the argument that all mini games should be studied before you study other games. Like, maybe there's an argument that makes sense there. But yeah, that doesn't really fly. Next, we have a game on Steam called Party Line VR, which seems like it's a party game, asymmetric game, with one person wearing VR and then everybody else playing on their phones, maybe? Let's see, early access, $12.74. It says single player, but it seems pretty multiplayer focused to me. English only.
Well played.
Yeah, still falling into the same trouble where you totally would not want to put on a VR headset while having a party and friends over and ignoring them, for lack of a better description.
Job's done.
Next we have a game on Steam called Mountain Taxi Driver. This looks like a low effort asset flip game. It's $1.97 with 1% discount and English full audio. I did notice up here that we have a red dot. One or more required builds undefined. So there's something about this page, or maybe just that plugin messed up. Let's see what happens when I reload the page. And nope, there's an undefined field in this web page that messes with that. Yep, and we're still trying to get one victory. This will probably be our last game. TechRaptor has the same article. Ring Fit Adventures like We Fit with an even weirder controller and an RPG. Again, $80 for the controller in the game. Way too expensive.
With honor.
TechRaptor has an article. Trials of Mana remake feels like familiar fun. So they seem to have had a good time with it. See, it's launching April 24th, 2020 for the PS4, Switch, and PC. One of the problems with the Trials of Mana remake, as it sits, is it looks like a decent enough JRPG, but I don't want to have to play the two previous Secret of Mana games in their current states. I don't think that there is a Secret of Mana 1 or 0, and then Secret of Mana 2 that would both be good experiences. Then I could play Trials of Mana. My understanding, it's probably a mess. But then this might also just be an instance where I've just failed to do the research, and maybe the Secret of Mana games actually are perfectly fine in their current states and totally playable. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Konami's being Konami. Konami reveals more about a Castlevania mobile game, Castlevania Grimoire of Souls. This almost seems like this was supposed to be released right as the real developer of Castlevania released his Kickstarter game as a way of trying to create market confusion. So Bloodstained was the Kickstarted game from the real developer of Castlevania. Meanwhile, Konami has got some low effort mobile game coming out. Here's a trailer. Let's give it its due. They're showing a bunch of old Castlevania games. So how are you going to control a character on the mobile phone? Like how are you going up and down? How are you swinging the whip? Seems like there's an interesting number of characters, one of which looks very much like the character from Bloodstained. Seems like they're probably copy and pasted and stole ideas, and then they're going to come back and try and sue, saying that they originally had the ideas.
Let me think.
Yeah. On the other hand, I would be amazingly surprised and very happily, pleasantly surprised if somehow they were able to make a Castlevania game that worked very well on the smartphones. Because if anybody could ever open that door where there was something that felt like a AAA game on a mobile phone platform, it would be groundbreaking, to say the least.
For justice.
Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Telling Lies review, clunky yet intriguing. Clunky is kind of what I was getting from it also. A game that seemed like it was playable as a Her Story sequel, but not really innovating in any good ways. They gave it a 6.0 good. Telling Lies has an interesting story, but is let down by a lack of direction and a clunky UI design. Even interesting characters can save the game, and the watered down epilogue, which is supposed to entice repeated playthroughs, just leaves a sour taste in the mouth. Pros: compelling plot, interesting characters. Cons: clunky video UI, broken up epilogue, lack of motivation or direction. And lack of direction is another thing you could probably save with her story too. Also, I really have to be careful about ever saying the word "too." I have to always say "also," because if I say "too," it sounds like TWO. Frankly, I guess everybody should just stop using that phrase in regular parlance. There we go. Tech Raptor has an article. Gen Con 2019 Crusader Kings the board game is apparently coming out. That's not video game related. Oops. Gamma Sutra has an article. Get a job. Redlands Gaming is hiring a senior programmer in Redmond, Washington. They've done work with many publishers like Warner Brothers, Microsoft, Activision, and Square Enix, as well as small independent developers. So they're a third-party development company, it sounds like. But in Redmond, Washington, that's not a terrible place to get a job. Key skills in C++ and C#, strong debugging and team communication, knowledge of Unreal Engine 4 and third-party engines a plus. So that's what that company wants, at least for that kind of job, and that doesn't really strike me as being out of line with what most developers seem to want. I should have attacked this. That was a mistake. Gamma Sutra has an article. Nintendo launches an infringement lawsuit against the ROM site ROM Universe. Continuing to do this. They seek damages of $150,000 per copyright infringement, as much as $2 million per trademark infringement. So yeah, Nintendo's trying to take down ROM websites when they're pretty much a decade or two too late on that. Control also is going to have a new game mode. That's what Expeditions is. Control probably wouldn't be interesting to start the game over from scratch. Actually. So it's probably better off not doing a new game plus mode. Alright, let's... I think I said we were going to be done with the games maybe 3 or 4 games ago, so I lied there, clearly. Let's go back to the Asian account. We're still trying to finish the last dozen or so pages. TechRaptor has an article. Get Good with Gravity in Grobo coming to iOS and Android this October. This is an advertisement for a mobile game. I don't think anybody's interested in. Seek out the article if you're interested, I suppose. See, I need to win this Tavern Brawl, and to win this Tavern Brawl, I would need probably to get really, really lucky. Gamma Sutra has an article. Methods in creating invisible tutorials. So this is inside programming style stuff. If it interests you.
I'm must
The
protect the
problem with Game of Sutra, though, is that half of its articles, frankly, are pompous, and I don't know how accurate anything that they're saying is. Often it feels like these things are just written to make it seem like Game of Sutra knows what they're talking about as far as game development, and that they have the inside scoop. That way Informer, their parent company, then can have some credibility when they run GDC. And often GDC feels like it's given more credibility than it deserves.
Time waits for no one.
And meanwhile, Game of Sutra's news reporting arm barely reports on any news, and none of it seems to be from first-party reporting. It seems to just be repeating what other people says. But then they sometimes have some business articles that TechRaptor doesn't cover, for better or for worse. And sometimes their programming or their blogs are interesting, but most of the time they aren't. Anyways, moving on, Game of Sutra has the article, Capcom wins a patent infringement lawsuit against Koei Tecmo.
Time waits for no one.
So we would, I guess, see. Let's see, a patent for unlocking bonus content when a DVD-ROM of the latest title of the game series is set in a game console by placing your DVD-ROM of the previous title in the game series in the console. That should not have been patented. That should not have been patentable. And yet that patent is still holding up. I suppose it's worth pointing out that this was in the Osaka District Court. So this is Japanese patent law, which is crazy in the first place, so yeah, it's not as crazy as it would seem. At least it's not US law upholding such terrible patents. Next we have a game on Steam called the VR Puzzle Box, which, why would I want to play what looks like a simplistic real-world puzzle game? Why would I want to do this in VR? This is so tactical. This is so hands-on. Why in the world would I want to play this in VR? Well, it's free, so I guess the price is right, but then it has a third-party end-user license agreement. It allegedly has full English audio. Yeah, I have no idea why you would want to play this in VR. It's ridiculous. Alright. Next we have a game on Steam called This Picture, which I believe is a slide puzzle game with just this one picture, maybe 2 or 3 other pictures, discounted to 59 cents, English only. This is garbage. But oddly, we haven't seen any lewd anime girl slide puzzle games in a while, so either maybe Steam put their foot down or people gave up on those. TechRaptor has an article here. Game Deck has your cyberpunk sleuthing virtual crimes. Is this a board game or a video game? Oh, Game Deck doesn't have a release date yet. It's coming to PC. So a hype article. I keep falling for hype articles. I just am not spending any time to go through all of this and curate it. Is the main thing. Alright, we're gonna play this, and then do this, and do this, and then end the turn. Tech Raptor has an article here. Stella is an atmospheric platformer for Dread. Okay. Looks a lot like Limbo. Let's see. It releases later this year for PC and Xbox One. Another hype article. Okay. Let's see. What do we want to do? Double this minion's health. Turn. I guess that's all I can do. Gamma Citra has an article here. There's a report that Disney plans to sell Marvel Strike Force developer Fox Next Games. That's not super surprising, quite frankly, because Disney doesn't really seem like they want to be in the video game world. So yeah, I would not be surprised one bit if Fox Next Games gets sold. Alright, I've had enough trying on Hearthstone. I'll play off screen to get this Tavern Brawl. Let's finish these last 5 news articles. Gamatsu has an article for the PS4, smartphone, and Switch. Sayonara Wild Hearts launches September 9th and adds PS4 and Apple Arcade versions. Sayonara Wild Hearts is this weird neon bike riding, I think, sword game from Annapurna Interactive. But honestly, I have no idea really what it is. I don't know if they really know what it is. I don't know if it's a real fighting game or if it's a rhythm game, or like when you look at all of this, it looks like it could be an infinite runner. It looks like it could be a racing game. It looks like it could be a QTE game. Looks like it could be several things. This is the kind of game that I need to see somebody play more than most. Next, Gamatsu has for the Switch the visual novel One Way Ticket, launches September 19th in Japan. Okay. One Way Ticket seems weird. It's already on Steam, so let's see. Steam has it mixed reviews. It's from a publisher and a developer I've never heard of. They're calling it a visual novel RPG. Animation doesn't look terrible. Seems like it's a human smuggling story. That's not something visual novels usually touch. $4.99. English, Chinese first, Japanese, then traditional Chinese. So I wouldn't be surprised if this actually is a Chinese game. Would also explain why the mixed story and why it looks just a little bit weird and why I wouldn't recognize any of the developers' names. So, okay. Take that for whatever it is. Yeah, it's gotta be a Chinese game, because if it was a Japanese game, it would have been released in Japan first. Yeah, that it wouldn't make any sense otherwise. Japanese companies always release in their home region, or almost always release in their home region first. Gamatsu has an article for the PS4 and Switch. Kimco announces a mystery adventure game, Senrai no Kifu Gendai Shogi Mystery, for which that's a mouthful. Looks like it's probably a visual novel mystery adventure. And you can see the Japanese do not have a lot of experience drawing old people. And this art style feels weird. Feels like it's a heavily oily painting or something. But if the game is playing Japanese chess, was that in the name? Shogi, yeah, Shogi I think is Japanese chess. So that would explain old looking people and being involved. Okay. Well, yeah, this is almost certainly a game that's not going to get ported to the West. Let's see. TechRaptor has an article, comic book panels come alive and liberated, which this is probably another hype article. Let's see. Liberated is set to release this year on PC, Nintendo Switch, PS4, and Xbox One. Looks like maybe the game is going to have QTEs, and then you're mostly going to be reading, looking at comic book panels, and doing a Telltale-esque style story game. Or at least that's the best I can figure what it would be. Next, we have a game on Steam called Follow the White Rabbit VR. This looks like this is a cheap Chinese game with a bunch of asset flip things. Or this is just a really weird combination of things. Is it a horror game in VR? Maybe. See, from this perspective, it seems like you personally have shrunk down, and this lady is looking at you. So, requires a controller, requires VR, $9.99, English, full audio with interface, then Korean, then Chinese. So this might be a weird Korean game or a weird Chinese game. Do I need to put this on the follow list though? Sure, we'll be generous, put it on the follow list, see if people actually like it. It might be weird enough that convinces me to keep it on the follow list, even though it's a VR game, so it doesn't really matter. Gamatsu has an article, No Straight Roads, Tokyo Game Show 2019 trailer for PC and PS4. No Straight Roads being a game I've not heard of before, or at least I don't remember. Is it an Infinite Runner or a skating game? Or it kind of feels like a modern Splatoon game, or perhaps a Jet Set Radio style game. But it looks more like it's a boss battle game. It's like a music-infused boss battle game. Interesting. We'll see how that's received when it comes out. I have two more. I'll just mention this briefly from TechRaptor. How to re-roll the best trainers in Pokemon Masters. Almost certainly there's a way to do that and delete your data and restart. If you really want to get into a game with a lot of gacha characters, or a gacha game like Pokemon Masters, which frankly Pokemon Masters is probably not very different than Destiny Child. You probably should do the research and get the forums and re-roll to get some of the best characters to start with. It'll just make your first small part of your career playing that game easier. Although on Destiny Child, I've been playing like less than 6 months, I think, and I'm doing perfectly fine. I've got almost everything that's available, except for some major exclusive things that I've just missed and I'll never probably be able to get. Next, we have a game on Steam called Bullet Roulette. We've seen a few of these roulette, Russian roulette style games. The difference here is this looks more VR-ish and a little bit more ghoulish. And it doesn't seem like there's... It almost seems like there's more of a game to it than just pulling the trigger, but I don't think so. Early access requires VR, requires a controller. $4.49 English only. It's always weird on the Russian roulette games whether that's something that would be interesting for 5 minutes to play in a safe virtual environment, or whether it's just a macabre, silly thing to do. I'll give this a follow. We'll see what the mob rule is. See how the crowd feels about it. And then that brings me to the Humble Bundle. And we'll just briefly see if there's a new Humble Bundle. Almost certainly the answer to that is no. And then I guess that can bring me back to my Twitter feed. We've gone 3 hours. I should have broken it up to recording at some point. It's just, since it's Friday, go through all the news and see if there's any new announcement or anything. So I'm pretty well set now. There's just need to get back into the groove and start recording some other games. I'm done with Torchlight. I'm glad of that. There was definitely some danger of me getting trapped into just having to grind for a very long time to finish Torchlight, and then me having a very bad reaction to the fact that I had to grind so much. There's a new article, but we can talk about that on Monday. Really, I'm just looking for big things. ESA tweeted, video games can give kids a sense of competence, connection, and autonomy that really boosts their self-esteem. This is a quote from a London Owen-based pediatrician and chair of the Canadian Pediatric Society's Digital Health Task Force. Discord cuts games from paid subscriptions plan after Nitro Games fails to take off. Interesting. TechCrafter has the 10 best games of PAX West. I may just scan that and see if there's anything worth mentioning of those games. The problem is going to come down to, if there are 10 great games from PAX West, none of them have put out enough advertisement that I could say anything about them, or even see anything about them, or wishlist them. Let's see if they're on Steam or anything like that. Speaking of which, I'm opening a bunch of games that came out on Steam in the meantime, and I'm gonna curate that down over the weekend so that we have a shorter Monday experience. And I think that pretty much means that we are done for the stream. I don't know anything about the PewDiePie situation. I haven't done any of the research. Seems like he said he was going to give money to the Anti-Defamation League, which is probably a mistake, and now he's saying he's not, which also is probably a mistake. So he's probably damned if he does and damned if he doesn't. So my only thought is perhaps he promised to donate money in a way of avoiding another hit piece coming out against him, and then he realized that the hit pieces were going to come regardless and said, well, forget it. That's the only thing I could guess from it. Again, I haven't done the research. That's going to be it for the stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me even further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.